Just another note for the Mavericks. We're moving in the right direction. Dante Exum is listed as doubtful for tonight's game, and you might be like, well, that doesn't seem like good news, and I understand, but it's the first time he hasn't been listed as out all season. So, look, that's the best I can do, Corey.
Have you seen the graphic of Joel Embiid?
Yes, we're going to get to that.
All right, okay.
I promise we will get to that because that's embarrassing.
When it comes to Exum, I think he's a poor man's Luka, very, very poor man's Luka, and that's kind of what they want from him, is to be able to handle the ball at times, but also be a long defender, and that's something that they are missing. That would be nice to have back at some point. But Jason Kidd has been in no rush to have him do something that's going to hurt him before he gets back.
I will say this: I think the best thing for 8th and 10th men on your team is to not play basketball. Because then people will start saying how much better you are than you really are.
Now, that, interestingly enough, ties into what we were going to talk about here, because the NBA trade deadline is a week from tomorrow. So it's at 2 p.m. Central, which, if you ever remember this drill, and it will happen at on Radio Row for the Super Bowl, the end of our show and the beginning of G-Bag that day are bananas. Because, everyone's trying to get those last-minute deals in. I remember the Redick deal happened in the commercial break, and G-Bag started off with that. So make sure you're always...
We had the Gafford and Washington news.
Exactly. So make sure...
We got to the place to do the show, and the Gafford news is kind of breaking in our show, and we're like, okay, we need to go watch this guy and check him out and everything.
And people were complaining about that, saying it wasn't a big move, and it turned out, obviously, those were hugely influential moves for the Mavericks. So we're going to be in that same position next Thursday. So the question is, which way do you go? Because ESPN has the Dallas Mavericks listed in tier 2 of the trade teams, and essentially that's the wild card group. Because you're like, I could see this going a couple of different ways. Because I'll just throw out the obvious 3 logical directions for any franchise. Do you try to make a move, potentially even a bigger rotational move? Do you just stay the course, or do you say, could we take a slight, or maybe a little bigger than a slight step back to add to your draft capital? At least for the Mavericks, I would assume add to your draft capital.
I saw a trade rumor, or a mock trade from, I believe it was SportsIllustrated.com. And I thought it was from San Francisco, so it made all the sense in the world, because I was like, this is the stupidest trade I've ever seen. It was the Mavs get Draymond Green. I'm not opposed to that. I think that would be a great add to this team where they're at. The problem is it was your 2025 and 31 first-round picks, second-round pick, Daniel Gafford, Maxi Kleber, and Jaden Hardy. And I was like, what the? No. That dude is close to the end of his career. You want Gafford, who should be a $25 million center in this league, who you have one more year for $13 million approximately. Yeah. You want Jaden Hardy, 2 first rounds, a second round for a dude who has maybe 2 years left in his career? No. So but that comes from the trades where people are doing it from the other side. What if we trade Draymond Green? We're out of the playoffs.
Sure.
Let's get a premium center for the next 8 years. Let's get a young prospect who's struggling to get minutes but could maybe be that Jordan Poole player that we had on our championship run. And then let's get 2 first-round picks from him, 2 plus a second. I'm like, Draymond Green ain't that guy anymore. I'd love to have him here, but I'm not doing all of that for Draymond Green.
And here's one of the problems that the Mavericks run into that, don't get me wrong, super pumped that we went to the NBA Finals. But some of the financial decisions that had to be made put you in a tough spot for this trade deadline. Because consider this, the Mavericks have trade exceptions available where you can just take a player in that money for $4 million, $4.3 million, $4.7 million, and $16.2 million.
Whoa,
which sounds
great. Where'd
the
$16.2 million come from?
But
that's interesting.
Shoot, I feel like I should know this.
I mean, it had to come from, I guess, either your trade with Charlotte or your trade with Washington.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was trying to think if it was the Charlotte one.
How that we had one that high.
Is the issue because you're already sitting in the first apron. You're not allowed to use any of those in a trade if the post-transactional salary leaves you over. So essentially, and that's why I said it's complicated, and that's what sucks. So whenever you see people are going to say the Mavericks have $29 million in trade exceptions, which is technically true, broken apart in 4 different pieces, including a really big piece. But you can't take any player in those trade exceptions if it's going to put you over. And you're already over, so you would have to find another team with a massive trade exception, and I don't know exactly what you would send off there to get you so far under that you could take a player back.
I'm trying to...
Sorry, I know that was a lot of words.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out the trade except the $16.2 million.
Like where it came from. I guess it doesn't matter. You have it.
Yeah.
They were hoping to fit Clay into it at the time. So I don't know if they did use it or if they didn't use it. I guess it sounds like they didn't use it.
Yeah, if they're saying they have it still today, then I guess they do, which really could help because the Mavericks do have a weird salary structure, and it's really good.
Yeah, they do.
If you're not trying to make any trades, it's really good. Luka,
Hardaway.
Oh, the Hardaway trade to Detroit.
No,
or was it Detroit that he went to?
It's Hardaway. Yeah, Hardaway trade.
So you have Luka and Kyrie making max out money, $40+ million. And then everything drops tremendously from there. So you don't have like, hey, De'Aaron Fox. Not that the Mavs would want De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
But
he's out there.
Or a Jimmy Butler. And I'm not crazy about getting Jimmy Butler. But when those guys make $40 million, you have to get to about that salary. And when you don't have a player making $20 million on your team, it just goes from 40+ million to guys to under 16 million or right around there. Makes it very difficult to add numbers up to get maybe a Draymond Green type of player or something like that who could really help your team.
And this is where the Maxi Kleber injury hurts as well. Because look, we all have our own thoughts about Maxi Kleber. I do believe there are some teams around the league that would see a certain level of value for him. And if he wasn't hurt, this would be one of the moves where if you wanted to try to bring back draft assets, because you have essentially your 25 and 31 first-round pick. You have a first-round pick swap option in 26, which obviously they'll take. And then 2 second-round picks this year. And so you don't have... that is not a lot of tradable draft assets.
And I do think for Maxi Kleber, I think his career's over.
You might be right.
He gets another $11 million next year. He's done. He can become a construction worker with all the brick houses he's made in the NBA.
With Jennifer Beal.
But I look at him, and he used to be a player that could give you 15 to 20 minutes a night, and you could live with his lack of offense. Now it's literally zero offense, and he's lost some of his athleticism, I believe, through age and injuries. But next year, he'll have an expiring $11 million contract. So I think that it might be a little bit more movable in the off season or next trade deadline where teams are like, wait, we're taking a player that has really nothing left and has $11 million on his contract next year. You'd have to take on a contract that people really don't like on their team, which I'm not saying right now. You do have a very wealthy owner, one of the 5 wealthiest owners in sports, maybe. I think I saw that.
I'm not disputing that. I don't know the
Adelson, or do you say Adelson?
I thought it was Adelson.
Yeah, that they are that rich that maybe they won't
Not
ever
disputing
worry
that at
about,
all.
kind of the taxes and everything of that. But it's going to be tough to make a trade. It'll be really cool if Nico can pull something off to help this team because they have depth, but then they don't have depth because everybody's always hurt. They usually have 5 guys that are out all at once.
Let me ask you something, because Nico has been very consistent in terms of we're not looking to make a big move because we feel like this team is still built for a couple more years, like at least this year and the rest of next year. Are there scenarios which you would be okay? I don't have the specifics of this yet. I'll work on that, where you're like, hey, we can move this person or this person, and I'm okay with not bringing players back, but bringing back draft ammunition. I realize you'd have to balance it out to help the future.
Yeah, obviously I don't want to move Luka or Kai.
For sure.
I don't want to move PJ Washington, Gafford, or Lively.
For sure. But that's where Hardy comes up.
Right, and I like Marshall.
Not the future.
I just where's his future? Let's just if we look at it, it's just tough if you play, I'm just looking at Dante Exum. He averaged 5 minutes a game in the playoffs. That's what's available for Dante Exum when you're healthy, or Spencer Dinwiddie if you're healthy. The thing is, you haven't been healthy all year, so we're hoping Exum comes back to help out how unhealthy this team is. So you look at Hardy and you go, he could be a dude who averages 15 a game or 17 a game off the bench, but he never will here because there's not the minutes to get here when your two best players are going to give you 36 minutes apiece. That leaves you 24 total minutes at the guard position.
Yes. And that's your key, is being a legal scorer. So, when it comes to that, this trade time, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if I want to add just one element that's going to help make a run or go do something that's going to give us some picks.
And at the same time, I
trust
exactly
Nico.
I trust Nico because last year he brought us two players that still had 2.5 years of very reasonable control that fit perfectly into this team.
Yeah.
So I will defer to him when it comes to figuring something out. I'm with you.
There's still a part of me, and it's probably stupid, of like, could we steal Zion? And it might be the stupidest move ever. But I mean, if he's cheap enough, what if you got Zion and then he cared?
That is a big ole if.
Yeah,
but you're right. If that if paid off, there you go.